Before we get started, I want to say how overjoyed I am to have met so many new people since my first Doctor Who video of last week. Especially our British friends, thank you very much for tuning in and commenting and liking this channel. It means the world to me. Thank you very much. Hello out there, I'm the Oldest Nerd, and today we're going to be talking about the second episode of Doctor Who, in which they are finding themselves stranded in the middle of space. What are they going to do? Well, having seen the episode, you'll know that, of course, and we knew this before it happened, it wasn't going to be a situation to where they were going to die and be the end of the series. So they had 15 seconds for something very improbable to happen, and it did. And so they end up on this planet. They're first separated, they get back together, and a couple of things that I noticed that were kind of interesting. First of all, if you remember Tom Baker, the fourth Doctor, he always had stuff in his pockets. Some people described him as Harpo Marx because Harpo Marx wore this long coat and he always had improbable things in his pockets. And Tom Baker was often compared with him because he always had stuff in his pockets. In one point, when he was paired with Romana, Romana offers somebody a jelly baby, and he said, "Where did you get that?" And she said, "The same place you get them, out of your pocket." It was later on established in the Doctor Who canon that the pockets of the Doctor's coat are like the inside of the Tardis, bigger on the inside than they are on the outside. So there's always kind of things in there. I wasn't quite sure where the sunglasses came from, the shades. It doesn't matter whether she was being truthful or not, but just so happened to have that in her pocket. And so I think this is going to be a theme that we're going to see throughout the series, is that she's going to have things in her pockets. That's going to be useful. This time the sonic screwdriver was very useful and was used in a number of instances in order to figure out some of the things that were going on. One of the things that they've always talked about, by the way, whenever they encounter an alien race, is how are they able to actually speak the language. And it's always been explained that as long as the TARDIS is around, that the TARDIS will translate everything going on. It creates kind of a field around the travelers that are able then to understand every language. And this time without the TARDIS, they had to have something else, and they had a clever way of establishing that. And kudos to the producers for not just glossing over this and remembering that there has to be some way for this all to make sense within their universe, and it does. We're starting to see a little bit more development in the characters. It seems that in addition to the Doctor, it's Graham that kind of takes charge of things. He is still wanting to build a relationship with Ryan, who is somewhat reticent still about this, but he is showing that he knows things, that he has some skills, that he certainly knows how to keep people's hopes up and things like that, things that the Doctor does. And before the end of the episode, even he's encouraging the Doctor. You've done things like this before, you know what you're doing. So we're going to see Graham as kind of the conscience of the show, really. He is one who is in the first episode kind of just in the background, and he's coming much more to the foreground. He's kind of being a driver of some of the action. Yaz and Ryan together, since they are friends and contemporaries, they seem to confide in each other, and that's kind of an interesting dynamic there as well. So there's this mystery planet, the mystery planet that they're on. First of all, they find out, of course, that the reason that they appeared in the middle of space was that the planet's not in its proper orbit, and everything has been laid waste, echoes of Star Trek. But that's a red herring. They have a much more basic reason that they want to tell you about that has caused the planet to be in this shape. And so there is a lot of adversity as they go. Everything seems to be after them, and different people are able to get them out of messes. The Doctor, not all the time, but most of the time, is kind of leading the way to make sure that everybody gets out of their temporary messes. And she makes a big deal about using brains over brawn in order to win this out, and inevitably proves that. Kind of in the same way that David Tennant was very emphatic about nonviolent means in order to get things done, that there's always another way, and so the Doctor always does find this other way. Now, the thing about the robot guards, where they finally get to the place where they've been led to, is ruins of what looks to be some kind of laboratory or some such like that, and they have guards around them. And without getting into any detail in the plot there, I find that these guards came from about the same universe as Star Wars did. They can't seem to hit anything even at point blank range. They're within like 10 feet of each other and can't seem to hit anything. One of the characters, as close as they are to him, is able to take one and knock them all down. So it's kind of one of those things. I mean, I'm not going to criticize it too much on that, because just about every science fiction show, nobody can shoot these things straight, even though by all technology and things such as this, they should be crack shots, and these things should be unable to be dodged, and yet they're able to run back and forth and dodge laser blast or whatever kind of blasters that they have. So if we criticize Doctor Who for this, we're going to have to criticize every science fiction show we've ever seen. So we won't do that here. But I do note that they have followed in the grand tradition of the enemy not being able to shoot straight. Another recurring theme that I think we're seeing in this, and some people pointed this out, that if Ryan is scared of heights, why was he trying to ride a bicycle at the top of a cliff? He actually has coordination problems. He's not able to know exactly where his feet are at all times. And this was the problem that he had with climbing the ladder to the crane in the first episode. And this may be the makings of a running gag, in that everything that becomes an obstacle has a ladder in it. In fact, he says in there, and shades of Indiana Jones, why is it always ladders? So almost in the same vein as Indiana Jones' fear of snakes, he has this uneasiness, perhaps not fear, but certainly an uneasiness of being able to navigate ladders. And so they put plenty of ladders in this episode, and I have a feeling that we're going to see more of that. Now, they said in earlier statements, the producers, that there wasn't going to be a story arc, and yet the same villain that they met in the first, or the race of the villain they met in the first episode, had something to do with this planet as well. And so I have a feeling that that's going to be at least some kind of recurring plot device. If it's not the overarching story, it's certainly going to be something that's going to be referred back to. So it'll be interesting to see that when they get to their next destination, if that doesn't play into it as well. That would be of interest to me to see just what they're planning to do with that. And once again, as we've talked about before, producers lie, just like the Doctor lies. Sometimes it is necessary in order to keep us from getting too far ahead of them. And sometimes as fans, we know the lore as well as they do, sometimes better, and can predict some of the things that are going to happen. And so to defend themselves against it, they just say, oh, no, we're not doing that, and just say something untrue so that knocks us off the scent. I'm thinking some of that may be happening here, so we may be seeing more of the aliens from the first episode. Now, one of the things that we have been waiting for since the beginning of this new series of Doctor Who is, what's the TARDIS going to look like? We've seen pictures of the exterior of it in the promotional videos and photos, but we've not actually seen it up close, and certainly have not seen the interior of it, although there were some leaks talking about some general ideas that it was going to have kind of an organic look inside. And In fact, the sign on the outside of the TARDIS is now back to dark with white lettering, but the lettering is embossed rather than printed, so that's kind of interesting there, or stands out. What does that mean? Is that embossed, or is that, what do you call that? Anyway, once inside, for the first time we see the outside of the TARDIS outline completely in the foyer, if you'll call it that, of the TARDIS itself. Up to now, we've only seen, since the reboot, just the outside doors. And this time we see not only the outside doors, but we see two other sides. And inside we see something that looks like a motif of gears along the walls. There's suggestions of the roundels that they had in the previous TARDISes. And in the center it looks very much like a more developed idea of Christopher Eccleston's David Tennant's first TARDIS, in that it had a more organic look. It has some elements of Matt Smith's first TARDIS, in that there are some antiquities that are embedded in the control panels. Unlike the running joke in the last couple of Doctors where they go in and they say, "I don't like it," this Doctor says, "I like it." And I like it too. I'd like to know what you think about this and everything else in episode 2. Do you believe that the writing is better? I think that it's improved somewhat. We've not had to worry about as much character development this time, but rather just got down into the intricacies of solving the puzzle. We have found the TARDIS, and we're now going to start traveling in earnest. And we've had the obligatory someone saying it's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. So with that, we will look forward to next week. And if you notice in the preview to next week, her t-shirt is a slightly different color. And so I think that this is following along with the David Tennant convention, in which she'll wear kind of a maroonish t-shirt when they're going back in time, and a bluish t-shirt when they're going forward in time. And so that we'll see if that holds up. Anyway, I'd like to know what you think. Please let me know what you have to add to this in the comments. I have been reading all the ones from last week with great interest, and I appreciate everybody who's taken the time to write. However, if you have not subscribed yet, please subscribe. This is something that's very important in order for us to be able to grow the channel and to continue to do things like this. So if you like what you see, please subscribe and ring the bell. And until next time, don't go far.